Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Guilford Selectboard meeting of February 28th, 2022. Welcome to the Selectboard members and to our public. Nice to see you all. And the rules of procedure, we have rules of procedure which will govern this meeting, and the rules of procedure, the basic premise of which is that we will be civil and to each other and raise our hands to be recognized. Are there any changes to the agenda order?
No, Richard, I do not have any.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes. Miranda has motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Rusty, thank you. Is there any discussion? There being none, I shall take the roll. Rusty.
Aye.
Zahn.
Aye.
Miranda.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Richard? Aye. The motion is passed. Thank you, and our minutes are approved. And Dan is not here, but Peter has spoken to both Dan and members of the highway crew and is going to give us an update.
The update will be very brief, and then Richard, just FYI, Ann Ryder has raised her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
You can tell me where you want this on the agenda. I'd like to propose an item for the next meeting, but I'd also like to do a little preamble as to why I'd like that on the agenda for the next meeting, and I wasn't sure where you wanted that little piece in this meeting.
Let's see.
It's about the Algiers Fire District, so you can tell me
Other
where you
business.
want it.
Other business, Richard.
What?
Other business.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say, other business. So you'll under other business, you'll tell us what you want, what you're suggesting as an agenda item for the next meeting. Thank you, Ann. Okay, on to the highway.
So, as Richard stated, I spoke with Dan and several of the road crew this morning, and not surprisingly, they have been somewhat preoccupied with plowing and sanding and salting the roads in town from our most recent snowstorm. They've also been cleaning up frozen culverts, hauling sand, and doing quite a bit of equipment repairs.
And that's it.
That's all that they told me.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Very good. On to the Guilford Historical New Business Historical Society Fire Protected. And I understand we have members of the Historical Society there who would like to talk to us about this. And we also had a letter.
Yes, hi, Richard.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us. I see Jim and I think Richard's there as well in the room. Do you want me to recap the letter that we sent, or do you want me to go about this?
Yeah, I don't think you have to read it because we've all read it, I'm sure, but just to, I mean, yeah.
Okay. So this past fall, the Historical Society had a roving archivist visit our museum building and look over our collection and kind of check out the building situation. And in her findings, we got a really lovely report on how to better protect the collection that we have for Guilford's Historical Society. In her findings, something that came up was the fire protection, water and fire protection. And we realized that we don't really have any fire detection in the building. And because it's a town-owned building, we kind of just want to be on the radar for future capital funds to maybe be considered to have an estimate of having that installed. We know the building has no water, so a sprinkler system wouldn't be in line with that, but just having some sort of fire detection that would then alert dispatch if there was ever an emergency situation.
Right. So, I have something to say about it. Do other select board members have something to say about this?
I have a question.
And I would like to invite a proposal from the Historic Society because there are funds in the capital budget for the Historic Society, and it seems to me that that's a very good use of them, given that it's a dangerous situation, actually. But did you have your hand up, Miranda?
Oh, yes, I just wanted to thank the Historical Society for sharing the report with us. I found it really valuable, and I think if somebody is actively maintaining the Historical Society website, it would be useful for, we have such an engaged citizenry these days that everybody, I think, would be interested to see what the archivist came up with.
And Don, I think you had a comment or a question? Yeah.
Yes, Aaron's recap, and thank you too for that. It's great. I was glad to read that report. It's really wonderful. But Aaron's note here makes me wonder whether or not the town has a plan or an overview of all of its buildings with regard to, and I don't know if that exists. I'm ignorant. Be happy to learn, but if not, it seems like it's the kind of thing that we ought to have across the board and not just building by building or spot by spot. So I just put that out.
We do have the capital needs assessment, which was a very useful document in regard to formulating the capital improvement plan. And in there are details about what the investigator, I'll call the person, saw that our buildings need now and might need in the future.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll take a look at that and see, but I was just
In the
thinking
capital.
from the point of view of safety, especially citizen safety, it seems like we'd want to be well covered there.
Yeah. Yes, Ann?
As long as we've got the Historical Society here, I'm curious to know what, if anything, you have done to pursue grant funding for the repair of the roof and the ceiling in there. I spoke to a friend who's really knowledgeable about a lot of grant opportunities and got some ideas, but I didn't know if you had pursued grant funding for those. I think it would, at some point it was like 120,000 worth of repairs. I was curious if you had pursued grant funding for those.
At the time, we have discussed that at meetings for sure. And it's something that's kind of on our radar to consider. It's finding somebody to do that, because it's very time consuming. So it's finding the right person to do that. And
when you say to do that, you mean do the applications?
Yes, do the application and the grant, because in the past, we have applied for grants through different venues, and I think it's more just about finding that time and carving out that time to pursue it.
A good place to start is with the woman who, O'Brien, I think her name was, who wrote that report, the most recent report. And she could probably, because she suggests in the report where you could go for seeking grants, and she might have more ideas about where to go. I'm sure she does, actually. So I would give her a call.
Certainly Preservation Trust of Vermont and the Agency of Historic Preservation. Yeah. So Erin, I'll get in touch with you because I'd like to hear more about what your thoughts are about that.
Great, I would appreciate that.
Thank you. So any other, so I'm suggesting that a proposal be composed to put before the select board, but I think that in order to do that, you're gonna have to have some technical assistance with the proposal and what the need is, isn't that correct?
Yeah, probably. I think that we need to have somebody, I think, come look at, what exactly we would be looking at installing. It's a very old building, We do have an alarm system there, a security alarm system there currently, and I don't know if that could just easily be upgraded and wired to fire. I think we have to first get an estimate and have a professional come out and check it out.
Right. So, I'm sure there are funds for getting someone in there to do an analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, am I correct about that?
I'm not specifically sure what you're referring to.
Well, I mean, do we need to have a technician, to come in and do an assessment of what's there in regard to the potential of putting a fire alarm system in there? The way that the reporter of the report wrote it, it wasn't she didn't seem to think it needed to be very complex, but it would alert the fire folks and possibly outside of the building with a light or sound that there was fire in there.
My guess would be
So what I'm
that,
asking is what the process is for having a technician come and do an analysis before the Historic Society puts a proposal before the select board.
sure, so I think that the first step that we could do, and Aaron and I did chat about this briefly as well. I think that we could get in touch with a couple of our folks at the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department, as they are kind of experts in this field, and we could see if they would be willing to volunteer a little time to come over to the Historical Society and you know, make some potential recommendations based on their experience. I also did.
Excellent, that's a very good idea.
So at least that way, you know, we could at least begin without spending any money.
Right.
You know, I'm pretty sure that Aaron knows at least one of them fairly well. So the other point I just wanted to reference, relating to a previous comment, is that at least for the remainder of FY22, there are no funds budgeted for any work at the Historical Society. However, for our upcoming FY23, our capital plan has $19,058 budgeted for other repairs, but we can talk about it. But it does not include this request that Aaron and the board are making at this time, so that would be something for the select board to consider adding.
Can I make one comment? Is that okay?
Who's
Hello?
speaking?
Michael,
Oh, sure.
I'm wondering, I mean, it doesn't seem to me that there's any harm in reaching out to the existing security alarm company and just asking if there's potential to add fire protection into the system?
Yes, I can answer that. We met with the person that put in our alarm system.
Okay.
And he said there is an outside light that's supposed to be activated, but it's really only an intrusion alarm at this point.
We can't hear Jim, sorry.
You want to come up to the table? Come on up.
It doesn't, excuse me, the alarm we have has no outside connection. He said we have the ability to upgrade it, but you then need phone lines that would be connected to the system that would be answered someplace else. But right now, the system that we have is just for intrusion.
So you're skeptical it could be, that fire could be added to that existing
I
system?
doubt very much. It's
Okay.
a very minor system. I think he said he installed it for like $245 or
Okay.
something. So, and I know that Victor
Johnson
said he has the problem over the years keeping that light outside to work.
Okay.
Just for the weather, so.
So I think it's gonna be very important there be a point person for this, who's on the Historic Society, to push this forward. Aaron, is there someone that will take charge of getting this, you know, together in terms of speaking to the fire department, talking to the current alarm system folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I don't know, the other question I would have, I guess, to the select board would be who is currently installing fire detection in all of the other town-owned buildings?
I don't know the answer to that. Peter, do you?
Well, the system in the town garage has been there since it was built. Here within the town office, we have just your generic smoke detectors, and we do have notification lights, but it is not tied to any external system that I'm aware of. I am not aware of any such system currently present at the library either.
Okay,
So I think that the fire, you know, talking to the fire department would be a good place to start. I'm sure that they have recommendations or resources that they can point you to. And then once you do that, we can move along in the process.
Okay. Great, I appreciate it. I don't want to take any more of your time, and thank you for hearing us out. And
Yeah, thank you for bringing it forward. It's an important, I mean, we want to save the history of Guilford. So I think this is very important, that we get something done if we can. Jason, do you have your hand up? No, okay.
Oh, I had my hand up.
I'm sorry, Miranda, yes.
So, oh no, all I wanted to say was that this might not be a very expensive system, and so we might not have to put it out to 3 different bids. You know, it might be a more modest project to streamline the process.
Richard, Jim has one more comment.
Okay.
Yes, Jim?
I was just wondering, the insurance on that building is covered by the town, because it's a town-owned building. Do they have any restrictions in it for the insurance that we need to have something?
That's an excellent question that I don't have an answer to. I can look into that.
The other thing is that we have insurance basically just for liability to the Historical Society, but when I called our insurance agents, nothing in that building is actually insured for any piece because it's all priceless. It cannot be replaced. So that's one thing that our insurance doesn't cover too much on that. But Peter would know on the town insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
So I thought that the Historical Society had offered this building to the town and the town had said no thanks. But now I'm hearing that it's a town-owned building, so help me understand.
No, it was the meeting house that they offered.
Oh, you're talking about the Historical Society, the museum.
Yes, the museum.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to move on? So I think we have a plan, right? The beginning of a plan, and let's see it develop.
okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Guilford Recreation Club request for ARPA funding. That's a request that was put in by one of the trustees of the Recreation Club to provide ARPA funding now for the Recreation Club. And I wonder what the select board thinks of that.
Carol Schnabel wrote the letter on behalf of the rec club, and for those who hadn't read the letter, it stated that they had matching funds for this project, but there were serious cost overruns. What I didn't learn from the letter was what the time frame was for using the funding that they had, because that in itself would certainly influence our decision-making process. You know, how urgent is this? I mean, she referred to having to return the funds, and I didn't know whether there was anybody who could shed light on that for us.
I do not have an answer, Miranda. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't expect that you did. I didn't know whether anybody from the rec club, I guess nobody from the rec club is here.
When I read the letter, I was very, sympathetic to it, but I don't see how, at the present time, given the program that we have set forward and the applicants who have already put in applications, I think that we should. My thought was to invite them to submit a proposal for the next round, when we will be thinking about more larger investments, community investments to use ARPA funding for. Rusty, did you have a comment? Oh, you're on mute, Rusty.
I just wondered if they met the criteria, but if we're gonna do that for later on, I don't need to know an answer.
Yeah.
Sheila has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Is there an update on the decisions that the select board is making about the applications?
Well, that's on the agenda. We're getting to it.
Sorry.
Yes. Zon?
I just want to say that I agree with you, Richard. I think that it would be, given where we are standing right now, it seems it would be a little irregular for us to just choose to respond to this one application by itself. I think it's better if we put them all in the group and work on everything together.
I agree with that as well.
I'm not sure what you just said, Zon. I'm sorry, and what Michael agreed with. Could you say it again?
That I'm agreeing with you, basically, that we shouldn't probably respond to a single application of its own merit outside of the processes that we're saying.
Right. And so I agree with you agreeing with me. What other, and that we could send a letter to Carol and the trustees stating that we would encourage them to come back later. And hoping that our letter could say, for instance, that we are thinking about wider all town investments in this, with the next use of the funding. Do we agree?
And also noting that it's a wonderful project and appreciating the work that they've already put in to get as far as they have with it.
Yeah,
I think it has broad application, broad appeal.
it's definitely a revitalization project. So I don't think we need to vote on this, but I would take the sense of the select board. I see heads nodding, that we should go forward in that way. Okay, we shall write a letter in response to Carol and say this, just that, and of course, thanking her for her letter and for the great work that the Recreation Commission is doing and this project.
But Richard, I do want to know if there's, I'm concerned about them being able to use the funds that they already have raised. So perhaps a question could be put into our response letter asking for information about whether they know how long they can delay this.
Okay, we can do that. All right, are we settled on that? Good, okay. The propane RFP, Peter.
Yes, so I had asked Richard to include this on the agenda due to very poor service from our current propane provider, as well as the fact that the town is about 1 year behind on seeking a new propane proposals. We try and do that every 3 years. Due to COVID and other factors, we didn't get to it last year. And several folks already know that for a second time this winter, our current propane provider neglected to deliver fuel to the library, and they lost heat for over 24 hours on a very cold day. And this is not, I mean, as I shared this, the second time it's happened this year, but this has happened numerous times in the past 4 years that we've had their service, amongst other issues. So I put together a draft RFP and shared that with the select board, and I'm asking you for your approval to submit that as an invitation RFP from local propane providers.
Are there any comments or questions for Peter? Yes, Miranda.
Oh, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. If people did see the request for proposals and were questioning why the Guilford Community Church was included in the proposal, it was because they have a generator and they serve as currently the town's only emergency shelter. So just so that, you know, the public will understand.
Thanks, Miranda. Thank you for that. Peter, do we need a motion to go forward with an RFP?
Yes, definitely.
I'll make the motion.
Rusty,
Michael moved, Richard.
Michael, what?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that we advance this RFP.
Okay, thanks. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Zon seconded. Okay, is there any further discussion? That being the case, I shall take the roll. Michael?
Aye.
Rusty?
Aye.
Zon?
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Richard, aye. Okay, that motion carries, so we will look forward to the RFP being put out. Hazard mitigation plan.
Yes, so I'm very pleased to let the select board and the public know that the town's local hazard mitigation plan is now in final draft. And starting tomorrow, it will be available for comment from the select board, the general public, as well as all of the communities that abut Guilford. Should you have, there'll be a copy on the town website. Paper copies will be available upon request. And if you have any questions or comments on the plan, you should email them to emd@guilfordvt.net.
Can you just summarize the process going forward now with the hazard mitigation plan, Peter?
Yeah, sure. So the process from here on out is the plan is put out for 2 weeks for public comment as well as select board comment, after which if there's no public comment, then the plan is submitted to Vermont Emergency Management for review. They have a contract with FEMA to review these plans on behalf of FEMA. They often will then return the plan with comments or recommendations to the town, at which point those changes need to be made or items need to be incorporated in the plan. If those comments are minor, then the plan can immediately be returned back to VEM. If there are major changes, it needs to be put out for public comment one more time and the process repeated. Once VEM has no longer has any comments on it, then it will be approved pending adoption by the select board, and it'll come back to the select board for final adoption. Once the select board adopts it, it will be filed with FEMA.
Okay, and are there any questions or comments about the process of the hazard mitigation plan? Miranda, yes?
Oh, I just wanted to say that it was a very interesting plan. I mean, it says a lot about the town of Guilford, and I would really recommend it. I was sort of expecting it to be a sort of slow crawl, but I found it really fascinating, and it talked a lot about who we are as a community and what possible hazards will exist here, what their frequency is, etc. And so I hope that people really will engage with it, and also I wanted to commend the hard work that went into it.
Thank you, Miranda. So it will be on the town website and in hard copy by request. Any further comments or questions? It's been a long haul, but we're getting there. Okay, on to discussion and updates. Discussion of ARPA application review schedule. We wanted to return to the subject to see where we are with this. I know that Zon, I think, wanted to have some things to say about it. I think it's also that we need to, I sent you the final rule out as a piece of information. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns sort of very quick summary of what we should know about it. And the most important thing, of course, is the idea of claiming a standard allowance. And I don't know whether we don't, according to Katie Buckley, who I spoke with, we do not have to vote on this, but we have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but we do have to agree if that is what we would want the town to do, is to basically, for the town to basically take the money in its funds and then distribute it as government services, so that whatever request we had filled would be filled as a government service. And that goes for, let's say, the meat market that lost money because of COVID, as well as the someone asking, some nonprofit asking for recouping funds that it lost because of lost admission. So I went over this thoroughly with Katie, and I used those two examples actually of this claiming the standard allowance. Have I gotten it right, Peter?
Yes, Richard, that's correct. There was some confusion when the final rule initially came out, thinking that we did need a formal decision, and after clarification with the Treasury, if the Select Board chooses just to proceed with using the funds as Richard described, then the Treasury makes the assumption that we are taking the standard allowance.
Right, and it's for, and we get, the standard allowance is up to $10 million. So I think we're within the boundaries of the standard allowance. I don't know whether the selectman wants to approve going in that direction tonight, or do you want to wait further on that? Because that's, I think, an important first step in this process. What do I hear?
I think we need to offer a bit more public education about what this really means before we make a decision. I mean, I know, I've read this over and over, I have talked to Katie about it, and even with examples, I still find it not exactly confusing, but just hard to think about, how this is going to impact our work.
Well, I kind of disagree. I don't kind of disagree. I disagree. I think this is something that we should do. It's in the interest of the town to do it, and it's just merely allowing the town to disperse the funds with fewer criteria than the federal government would put on, and it makes the reporting requirements much easier. I mean, that's one of the major achievements of the final rule, is that the reporting requirements would be much less arduous than they are at the present time.
Richard, Ann Ryder and then Zahn had both.
And I'm sorry, Ann Ryder, come up and go down.
I think that you kind of answered my question, Richard. I was going to say I agree with Randa because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh.
But then as you explained it, I was sort of getting the gist of it. So that's when I took my hand down. But any more conversation is only good.
Right. So we had been waiting for just for background, we've been waiting for the final rule from the Treasury Department that governs the rules, really, of what the criteria will be in regard to dispersing and reporting on ARPA funding. And the final rule has been made, and one of the changes that it made was that a town now can claim lost revenue up to $100 million, $10 million, and then take the money into assume the money in its own funds and distribute it for government services, and it is services that were provided to the town of Guilford, so that we don't have it's not the right word to use, but the interference or the intermediary of the federal government in this whole process.
So,
now, I'm certainly happy to wait longer on this, and if people want to study it more, or discuss it more, or learn more about it. Zahn?
So I have a couple of questions. If we didn't go the route that is being suggested, then do I understand correctly that the relationship of this money would be more with the federal government, so there would be more reporting required? It's a way of, if I understand correctly, it seems to be a way of cutting out our need to both report and meet certain standards set by the federal government.
Yes.
It's essentially us taking the responsibility of saying what we're doing is our community's business, and we're going to then figure out how we want to spend the money.
Right, and that's why it's called, the payments out are called government services. A government meaning the town of Guilford, as opposed to the federal government.
Yes.
Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong about this.
Yes, that was correct, Richard.
Sheila?
Sorry, is this something that the auditors or NEMRIC should weigh in on so that there's another take on the town the impact on the town finances, just not just a reporting, but, I mean, it seems like really a complex issue. I don't get it. I'm not grasping it.
So NEMRIC has provided opinion to VLCT. For those of you who are not aware, NEMRIC is it stands for the New England Municipal Resource Center, and that is the company that runs the accounting software that the town uses. So Katie and VLCT have already worked together with them, and that's part of where the VLCT recommendations are coming from.
Thank you.
Yes, Rusty?
Well, the way you're proposing it, Richard, we would, if we wanted to do it that way, wouldn't we have to establish our own standards at that point instead of, willy-nilly? So we could tell the people that we're gonna be doing this, this, and this, instead of just taking the money and doing whatever we want.
I think we still have to stay within the standards of the criteria set out in the initial legislation. But that's a very good question, and I think that we should get the answer to that. Do you know the answer, Peter?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, so through the final rule, if the town takes the standard allowance, that the town can use it as government services, which means you can use it however you so choose. If you do not do that, then what Zon was saying earlier is correct. There are much more stringent requirements for reporting, and there are very narrow parameters, which is what we came up against previously as far as how those funds can be used. Does that answer your question, Rusty?
Yeah, Zon?
Well, so at the point of being overly simplistic, this feels and sounds to me something like a standard allowance on a tax form. If you take a standard allowance, it just allows you to do things. There's a big group of things you can do, and if you want to do it by detail, you can do that as well. And you take your chances on whether or not you'll get funded, I suppose. Then.
And Zon, yes, that is where the idea that the Treasury took came from, was actually from the IRS.
I see. So, I can see from their point of view, it would really simplify matters if every community in the country took the standard allowance. It would make it much easier for them to deal with, and the way of cost cutting from their end, their point of view.
It seems to me that now that I proposed this, that we don't seem quite ready for this, although I do strongly believe it's a step that we should take. I mean, it just seems silly not to do it, because the federal government is offering us a way to get them off the town's back, so to speak, in some regard. But, I mean, it may be perhaps helpful for the select board if Peter and I, working with VLCT, although VLCT has a lot of information on this, but perhaps we could, as part of our process of going forward, prepare some bullets for further information. Although I did send you out what the VLCT did send 2 days ago. And it seemed to me that it was very favorably inclined for towns in Vermont to do this. I can't see the downside. Miranda?
Well, I agree with, I'm talking about public education, not for us, but in the interest of transparency, which we all value, to put together a digest of this for the community before we decide, say, at the next meeting, how we're going to go forward. I mean, I just think that, we've received a whole lot of information. And for the public, I mean, going to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website and for them trying to digest it, I think it's very difficult. And so even though it slows us down, I think it would be valuable to provide clarity for others in addition to ourselves. I think that's what's being asked of us.
Well, if we put together this bulleted form of information, we can push it out for public scrutiny.
Right.
But then we will have to, with the understanding that this is slowing down the process, because my premise is that until we decide this, I don't think that we can go ahead with working on ARPA, because this is really a big one that a town needs to decide, whether it's going to be dispersing the money as government services, or whether it's going to be working more closely with the federal government regulations and reporting requirements. So I would like to, Sheila, do you have a question or comment?
Yes. I think what Miranda's saying is really important in terms of transparency to the town, because what I was getting out of this discussion initially was it's going to be easier for the town to report this disbursement of funds, not talking about how the funds are going to be not about how it's going to benefit the people who are making the applications. So you've got the benefit to the town, the select board, the town employees about how to handle this, but I think it's also equally important to talk about how the community is going to be impacted once you decide whatever mechanism you're going to take to disperse these funds.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in favor of slowing down and not proceeding with the standard of allowance at this time, adopting that. I'm with Miranda's approach.
Okay, well, I would say that I would, and I'm in agreement with that. Is there anybody, other select board members who are not in agreement with that? Slowing it down, which means that the process is being, the whole ARPA process is being slowed down. Do I have any disagreement? Okay, so then what we'll, Peter and I and whoever else wants, I would suggest to the select board then that you go on the VLCT site and get as much information as you can, and there's a lot there. And anybody can go to that site, and there's an ARPA, there's a whole ARPA section there that has all of this information on it, and really become more knowledgeable than we are now, so that we can make sense of this. And Peter and I will work, does anybody else want to work on drafting, doing the research and drafting what is necessary to both be informative and transparent?
I will.
Okay, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that we need to make this information accessible to people in a way that they can understand. And I approve of going forward in this way.
Okay, Sheila, do you have something more? No.
Richard?
Zon?
Yes, I do. Sorry. I wanted to say too that people keep asking me about when are these funds going to be dispersed, and I'm like, I don't know. They met 2 weeks ago in executive session, and we haven't heard anything. So I think that's another important question to address when you're doing this.
Well, I, as far as I know, Zon and Miranda have been in touch with everyone, all the applicants. Isn't that correct?
I know one applicant who has not heard from you.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
You're saying what is true is that they've all been contacted.
No.
Oh,
They are
well,
not.
that was the request in the last meeting.
Mhm.
Well,
So, may I request now that you do that? Because we had as an action step at the last meeting, that you two had volunteered to do that. And I was under the impression that you had.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry about that.
Well, these things happen, it's, you know.
Well, no, I was under the impression that Brandon and I were going to put together a process by which that would happen. And I think it would be our hope that the entire select board would be involved in that process. So we'll pull it together and make sure it happens.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, it's either a phone call or a note that just says, and now we know from this discussion that that it's not going to be tomorrow, because we've really got to settle this question of the final rule and the standard allowance.
Well, we want to do the public education about our process. I mean, it's.
But we also need to do the select board. We also need to do the select board education about the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, is there anything further to say about the ARPA schedule? Or,
Yes,
okay, go on.
thank you. But I see, Sheila, is your hand still up? Okay, all right, thank you. I think it would be important for us to spend just a couple of minutes, if we could, Richard, on some of the ideas about the, just, not that we've just slowed the process down, but I think the select board needs to look at how we're gonna go forward and make a few, talk for a minute about some of the things that some of the processes that we could go into. It seems to me when I look at all the applications that we've received, we have some applications that deal with previous loss, and we have our applications could be divided into two groups. There's a group of applications that are about previous loss, and then there's a group of applications that have to do with community investment, in other words, looking forward into the future. All of those are allowable. It seems to me that we need to address this in two different ways. One is that if we look at the applications that are about previous loss, they fall into two categories: businesses and organizations, and then individuals. And we have not addressed those yet, and we need to. I'm of a mind that if we look at this is my view, and I'd love to hear what other people have to say, but if we look at these applications, it seems to me if we're dealing with previous loss, that the businesses and organization issues could be looked at immediately. Those applications could be looked at immediately, or very soon, and decisions could be made.
Well, once we get the process figured out, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then the individuals, I think we need to consider our big hearts when we first started this process was to go out and address the need in our community as we found, as it was expressed. And I think that what we discovered in the meantime was that as we talked at our last meeting, there are a number of resources that are available in this community to address those very needs. And that it might not be the best use of ARPA funding for us to provide a one-time assistance package when there could be consistent assistance available made if we understood more about how to put those together. And it seems that that's a process that we as the select board need to learn more about and go through. So I would encourage us to think about the previous loss applications and look at how we can address some of those immediately, and others we need to learn more about a system that could go forward relatively soon. But I think that then the other thing I'd like to say is that I think that when we look at the applications that have to do with community investment, that we have an opportunity here to broaden the discussion, something like what Sheila did before with community input. I think we could develop a program or a project or a discussion in the community that would find a strategy by which we could really begin to address these remaining dollars through the community and find out what are the real priorities in our community. What does the community feel like are our real priorities where we might spend this money? So those are my thoughts, and I'd love to hear what other people have to say.
Well, one question I have, thank you for that, Zahn. That was eloquent and sensible. But pragmatically, we have to consider what we do with the applications that we do have.
Yes.
And so I understand that you're talking about when we review them, and I think that's a very good idea of the ones that are sort of asking for money that's an investment in the future, and those that and then asking for funding for what the impact was in the past. But we need to consider that we have applications to deal with, and we need to have a response to those applications one way or the other. And that weighs very heavily on me. And the time that it's taking to get answers to those applications weighs heavily on me. I do agree that in regard to the several applications from individuals that we have, I think that's going to be a difficult review and a difficult decision for numerous reasons, as you pointed out. But also, to me, it's how was the impact? Was the impact beyond a certain individual? Even if it was an individual, does it impact more than just that individual and that individual's family? So we're going to have to figure that out. But I do like your idea. It's a sort of a rubric of how we might go about parsing the applications. I mean, we already have a rubric, and we just have to sit down and review them and make decisions when we do. So that I don't know, would we incorporate what you're saying into a process? An accepted process when we do review the applications? Is that what you're looking for?
I can respond, but Anne's hand is up.
I just clarifying, I understood you, Zahn, to say that maybe we should prioritize those that had to do with loss, and then those that had to do with improvement in terms of the community can be put in a slightly later response, not less priority, but just from a timing point of view. Zahn, that's what I understood you were saying.
Yeah, that's what I understood him to say too. So, and I agree with that.
I think so listening to what you're saying, Richard, what I would suggest is that we take there are business and organizational previous loss applications that I think we could all look at. Like today, I'm not proposing that we do it today, but that they're the highest, most immediate, we could react to those almost immediately. I think it's more complicated and more tricky, as you suggest, with the individual and household previous loss applications, but those need to be dealt with nonetheless. And I would put those in the second category. And then I would say that those that are dealing with community investment could be part of a larger discussion that we need to have in our community. So I'm sort of separating things out into, there are some we need to do soon, and there are some that we could move out into a larger community discussion.
Yes, I agree, Zahn. But it's going to be premised on getting this final rule business settled first. I think we have to do that. So, and other members of the select board, yes, Miranda.
Well, discussing the framework that Zahn put out is really what Zahn and I did prior to contacting the individuals affected by the slowing down. And so I think that his proposal is very sound, and I also think that all of the select board members could ask themselves what role they would like to have in communicating with people. I mean, Zahn and I decided that rather than calling up people on the telephone, we would try to create a rational idea about how we're going forward. I do think that it's not going to take a long time to move this beyond 2 weeks, because at the next select board meeting, people will be educated about the decision that we're making, about our process, and then we can work quickly on these applications.
Thank you. Rusty, Michael, anything to, yes, Rusty.
I'm just a little apprehensive about changing the rules of the game. The way I'm listening to this is there's going to be one set of rules for the people that have applied, and then for the rest of the money, there might be another set of rules. I don't know how fair that would be.
Yeah.
I don't think it, I'm not, I don't think, that's not the way I hear it. That may be it, but I hear it as that it's a matter of timing. That we would do the disbursements sequenced so that we would be looking at the applications from organizations and businesses first and dispersing funds then, and then do a review of the other applications with more input from the town, from the community later. So I don't think it's a matter of changing the rules, it's timing. Isn't that what we're getting at, Zahn? Yeah,
I think
does that make sense,
I
Rusty?
think of it more like that, more like a timing issue, although I do understand what Rusty's saying. I think we have to be very careful that there's not an impression that we're changing the rules on the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And are you, how does it sit with you if we do change the timing, Rusty? I mean,
It's not so much the timing, it's just that I think we have to have a set of rules for everybody and not do one set and then we do another set later and then the rules have changed. I don't think that would do us well.
right.
Yeah. I do have another point I'd like to ask for just a clarification or input from the select board. It strikes me that when I look at the individual and household applications that we received, there are a number of them, and they're quite ranging in both their capacity to write grants and to ask for monies, as well as the amounts of monies that people are asking. It's there's quite a range. I think we as select board see that. We're not at liberty, of course, to talk about that in a public fashion. But I was wondering about the idea of, and this is just an idea, I'm not proposing that we do it necessarily. I would love to hear what other people have to say, but there's some argument that we might ultimately not fund any of these. I'm not saying that we would or won't, but that's a possibility, I suppose. There's a possibility that we might fund only the applications we've received so far, or there's a possibility that we might fund more individual and household applications if we opened it up later, using, as Rusty suggests, of course, these same criteria. So we need to think about how that might impact this overall amount of money as we go forward. And I wondered if there's any smarts in setting a fence around the amount of money that we're willing to spend on individual and household applications. Only because I think that if we were to announce to the community that we're going to fund these certain applications and the community read them and saw what they were, many people I think in our community would say, I could have done that. I could have asked for that money. How come I didn't do that? And so I think we need to think about this a little bit, about how we're going forward. I'm not inclined to just accept the applications that are in front of us right now as the be all end all of how to deal with this. It's a little messy, I understand, but it's what hits me as we're going through the process.
So yes, Brenda. Did you have your hand up?
Oh, did somebody else have their hand up?
No, I did. I was responding to. I thought you had your hand up.
I do have my hand up.
Well, I'm recognizing your hand. I'm recognizing your hand.
Oh, well, thank you so much for recognizing
You're
me.
very welcome.
Okay, so, I have to admit that, I've been very preoccupied with everything around pre-town meeting, and it's really, just speaking honestly as a resident of Guilford, my thoughts are just, returning to this and trying to be clear. My intention was to spread the word, and is to spread the word about resources that are available to people who are our neighbors in need. I sent to Peter the list of resources that Katie Buckley sent to me for householders who are in need, so that could be posted on the town website, so that I have also spoken with Leah Gessner of Guilford Cares about having some volunteers who would be available to help people navigate. If we're saying, try this now or try this first, this list of resources, if these are some of the things that apply to you, and if people need help with that, I want to have people who can be able to help. So that's one piece of what I have to say. I hope it's clear. The other piece is that towns are being advised to start ARPA advisory committees. And Katie Buckley is preparing an ARPA toolkit for communities to put together an advisory group so that we could have much broader representation in setting up this working group on using these funds. So I hope that these aren't too wide-ranging to present at the same time, but these are my thoughts.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, Sheila? You're on mute, Sheila.
Thought I unmuted. Sorry to take the time, and I'm gonna have to leave after this, but I wanted to say that what I'm hearing from both Zon and Miranda is that you have learned a lot more about some very specific needs that the town residents have that go beyond, preceded and go beyond the ARPA funding possibilities. And that we have a responsibility as elected officials and volunteers to help people access resources that you may have just come to light. And it's possible that the finance committee can help with that too in some volunteer capacity. So, and I just want to thank everybody for doing all this great work. It's awesome, but I do have to get going.
Thank you, Sheila. I'd like to get to some action steps now. I think that, that I'd like to bring this discussion to a close and come to some action steps, if that's okay. So I know one action step is that we need to prepare bullets about the final rule, and Peter and I are going to work on that. Then we want to, I think that you have a very interesting proposal, Zon, and I think, I don't know whether the select board is prepared to consider that tonight, particularly the suggestion that when we do review the applications, that we do it and disbursements, that we do it in a timed manner, and that we look at the organizations and businesses first, and then gather more information and community input from about how to handle the individual requests. Does the select board want to come to that decision tonight? That when we do review, that we will review and if there's a dispersal, that we will come to the business and organizations, what Zon called looking backward of what happened aspect of this, or do you want to wait on that too? Because we are going to have to wait until we get some certainty about what we want to do about the final rule.
Okay, well.
Yes, son.
I'll just propose that as soon as we know what we're doing with the final rule, that by the next meeting, we would have a plan for looking at the business and organization previous lost applications.
Okay, great. I don't think we need a motion for that, do we, Peter?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
That would be.
We just need approval. Does anybody disapprove? Let me start there. Okay, so that's one of our action steps. Then I think we should.
Perhaps Ron could write up, could just write up his proposal in a simple way so that, everybody understands it exactly the way he said it.
Thank you, Brenda. I'll do that and get it to Peter tomorrow.
No, I just lost my train of thought.
We also want to look into
it. We want to look into an ARPA advisory council. That's another action step. I can't think of any others. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so, Richard. So who's gonna follow up on looking into an ARPA advisory committee?
I can, I guess, depending on the outcome of the election, Zana and I have had some preliminary conversation about that. I would like to put out a draft, a suggestion for possible stakeholders to begin with.
Great.
Who
Thank
to
you.
ask.
And you'll present that at an upcoming select board meeting, Miranda?
Yes.
And then another action step is that Zon and Miranda are going to contact in one way or another and just say that we have a delay in both reviewing and deciding on the ARPA applications. Yes,
And with
Miranda?
any other select board members, I don't really see that we need to be the only ones to do that. If anybody else is willing to do it, then we can divide up the applications.
I can do a couple if you send them along to me, which ones that you're taking, and I can do a couple, for sure. Okay, thank you very much. That was a stimulating discussion. On to the capital plan quarterly update.
Yeah, I just wanted, it's that time again, I just wanted to provide a quick update for the select board and the public on the capital plans. As Dan shared at our last select board meeting, the siding project on the town garage is now about 99% complete. The final remaining items will be completed once the weather warms up. And so with that, the only item remaining on the capital plan for fiscal year '22 is the replacement of the decking and the guardrails on the bridge at Jelly Mill and Green River Roads. And as has been previously shared with the select board, the town did receive a grant from V-Trans to partially assist with that. And so in April, Dan and I will work together to present an RFP to the select board for that project. And other than that, all items on the capital plan for the current fiscal year are now done.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Any comments or questions?
Thank you.
All right. And then the select board goals quarterly update.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the quarterly updates that the select board asked me to put on the agenda, and so I didn't know if any select board members had any comments regarding the status of the select board goals, as you will be rewriting them shortly. And so this is kind of the last time to discuss the goals you set.
I think it would be good to have the goals on a screen so that we could see them. And do you have them?
Yep, I do. Just give me a moment. Nope, you guys can't see that. Just a moment. There you go. How's that? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yep. So certainly I see on our inclusive, affordable, sustainable community, the broadband has we've really been active in, and particularly Zon, being on the executive committee of the local CUG, has been working aggressively to get that done. What else?
I have been engaged with, it's very difficult to get together with people that you don't already know in COVID times, but I have just yesterday at the Winterfest, I met a bunch of young parents who want to be involved with the town of Guilford and didn't know how. And so that was just a wonderful thing.
I don't know whether we've figured out what an uptick in service looks like, and that's something that we probably should work on in the next set of goals. Did anybody have ideas about what that should look like? Social meeting engagements? We have been stymied by certainly by COVID and by our restrictions on movement and gathering. I mean, this is all about gathering in some ways, and it's pretty hard.
I would say that we didn't really address that. We didn't address that one much this year. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
number 3, we have had the reports at select board meetings from the commissions. Does any other select board members have anything else to say about that?
I do have one thing. Sorry, Richard.
Yes, please.
I would thank you. I would hope that next year we would that we would have a schedule that was a printed schedule that we could actually even make public about when when the commissions and the committees are going to meet with the select board, so that people could look at it and know ahead. I myself have been kind of surprised, to see. I'm glad that the commissions are coming. That's great, but I'm sometimes surprised. Not that I need to be highly prepped or anything, but I think our community would love to know of the engagement and see that it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we can be more active in circulating information about partnerships that are starting around the town. I mean, for instance, I'm personally in touch with the Neighborhood Roots Collective, and that's the food sovereignty group, as they call it, and they have very exciting news. And, we just haven't scheduled a time yet together for them to come, but their work branches out into other partnerships that the town has. And so it would be great to have a schedule to invite them to talk to us about what they're doing.
So we should put that in the next, when we write the goals for the new year.
Right.
Anyone else? So which one are we on now? Now we're on 2?
No, that you're on 4 now.
Oh, I wanted to say something about the select board is active, open, and transparent. I think the select board has worked very hard this year to be as transparent as we could. We've had articles in the Gazette. We've had tons of communication on the town website. And what I find is difficult, and the town report had lots of information in it that people asked me about, but that was in the town report. Like in the town report, it's a very good explanation of what the capital improvement plan is and what the capital plan is. And so we need to figure a way, and I would add, if you could take a note, I think we need to add, how do we get folks in town to know where to go to find the information that we are trying to be transparent about, because that's I think that's a big problem that we have. So the information in many instances is there, but people don't know where to find it, or they don't know whom to ask. Well, they can always ask the select board, but there is a lot of information. We have to figure out, how do we get it into people's hands? How do I find this? And I guess, a lot of people don't have internet, but that is one of our major vehicles of advertising what's going on with the select board, and John is on.
I don't know if it's the purview of the select board or not. I don't really know who the town website belongs to, but I would recommend that there might be a little subgroup that might want to look at the website from a user's point of view and develop different users. One of the ones being the ones you're talking about right now, those folks who are looking for information but don't know exactly how to find it. What are ways that we can begin to, we can adjust the website to make it more user-friendly for those folks? I think there's some
Okay.
ways, my personal look on the website, I think there's some ways we can go about fixing things, but I don't know if that's our purview or not.
No, well, it is, we have to look at what our purview is, you know, is Peter the person who should be, the website master, which I believe he is, and what is the relationship of the website from the select board's point of view to the town clerk's point of view, because there seems to be some, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not a good connection in there, I think. And I have been asked by other folks to look at the website, so I think that that's something that we have to put on our agenda is how do we get the website revamped so that it's more communicative?
I
Peter's
think
writing all this
I would
down,
agree.
so we'll be saving these suggestions for the town, for the next select board goals.
Hey,
Richard, I had
Yeah.
something to add if you were done speaking.
I also,
Yes,
You know, I feel as if, you know, one of the lessons learned from this year is that I really feel that we need to be a lot more process-oriented in public, in the sense that I used to try to do my homework before the meeting, and then at the meeting, we could get through everything quickly and efficiently with maybe some comments to the public about we're doing this now. But I feel as if the public is asking us to educate them about what we're doing, and also to have the kind of sloppy conversations that, I mean sloppy in a positive way, like not knowing type conversations together in public that I didn't used to feel comfortable to do. But I think that people are asking us to try to air our not knowing as well as our knowing.
good point. So I think that should be definitely be incorporated into the goals. So do you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to follow up with what Brian is saying. In my view, in thinking about all of this, is the notion that, in fact, I think that the open meeting law in the state of Vermont is a particular tool that can be used in a certain way. And I think that every select board in the state must have to wrestle with it to figure out how to do its work. And I think that probably we have learned a lot this year about how we might be able to be more open and more, I don't mean more open like we're hiding anything, but just more generally open in front of the public, doing our business, still inside the rules of the open meeting law. Because we've seen what's happened this year, though. I think there are many people in our community who think we're attempting to hide our actions and our work from them, which is in my view, completely not true. But I think there are those people out there for whom they feel like we're trying to hide. And I think we have to struggle against this notion of open meeting law. And so I would second what Brandon said. It won't hurt us to be more sloppy,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word.
Richard,
Okay.
Michael had a comment he wanted to make.
What?
Michael had a comment he wants to
Oh,
make.
Michael, okay, I'm sorry, it's hard to see you.
yeah,
Way
it's kind of
away.
ironic that it's harder to jump in when you're in the town office, but,
In the meeting.
because I'm tiny, I guess. I was gonna say, well, first of all, I think there's, on the town website, the potential to make it a little more user-friendly. When I hear that people are wanting to jump in and help out and be more involved, you know, I'd really like for that to jump out on the town website, how they can do that. Another personal goal, I'm not suggesting every select board member should do this, I mean, for me, I kind of have a goal of trying to attend at least one of each of the commission meetings over the year. I tend to only go to my, the commission that I'm the liaison to, and I would like to get a little more knowledgeable about each commission. So, I don't know, it's just a personal goal of mine, something to consider for all of us, but maybe
I think
try
that's
to
a good suggestion.
attend at least, you know, that's gonna be tough to get to every single different commission, but try to reach outside of your sphere a little bit and check out another commission or two beyond your liaison role.
Thank you. Okay, are we on 5 now?
I think so, Richard.
So I don't know whether we've had great success with that. I know the BBCC has come and reported to us, and Leah was there. And I think we did, actually, the Leadership Council, didn't we have a presentation from the Leadership Council? I believe we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd also like to just acknowledge that the Finance Committee called together a number of nonprofit groups in town for a few meetings to talk about needs here in the community related at the beginning of the whole ARPA process.
Right. Okay, and then the Select Board, number 6, advocates resident safety. I think that our scoping study that is looking at the safety of a pedestrian bike path in Guilford Center Village is something that we really worked on. We got the grant, and the study is underway. So and that's a major project that really speaks to that particular goal.
I think really fallen down, and I noticed that way back there was some kind of, along with the first goal, outreach to elders, and that was something that, I feel as if I haven't done this year, and I'm not sure how we can do it, maybe through partnering with Guilford Cares or just, I don't know, finding ways to visit and have more conversation, but that was something that I marked myself as notably absent.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can move on, and I think we have a lot of notes and a lot to think about, and a lot of notes to put into the next the new set of goals, and I think that we'll ask for more specificity in those goals. Perhaps there will not only be goals but objectives as well. Smart objectives, strategic. What is it? Strategic. Anyway, they're smart objectives. I don't. My head is not right there now. Okay, on to.
Excuse me, Richard. There's something in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I'm doing a lot of things at the same time. Great advice, Neil.
So Mary Wisman asked, with the CDC lifting the mask indoor rule officially, when might regular in-person town meeting resume? And the mask mandate in the office building.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I don't think we can take that up tonight because it's not on the agenda, but let's put it on the agenda for next time.
Well, I mean, as far as town meeting, we are unable to make any comment on that until we hear from the legislature in their next session. So unfortunately, we're not, to my knowledge, we're not going to be able to make any comments on that for the time being.
Right, but the town buildings we can have a decision on, can we not?
Yep, that definitely, Richard.
So we will do that next time, but it's on the agenda. Okay, the warrants, Miranda, please.
Oh, goodness, hang on, I just have to, okay, I'm ready. I move that we pay the following warrants. Payroll week 2/2022 for the sum of $6,432.93. Payroll week 2/27/22 for the sum of $7,170.95. Expense warrant 2216 for this sum of $44,951.34 for a grand total of $58,555.22.
Do I have a second?
I'll
second. Miranda, is there any comment?
Yes, so the major expenses were diesel fuel, salt, sand, and the quarterly liability insurance, making up 2/3 of the general warrant.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, with that, I will call for the vote. Rusty?
Aye.
Zahn?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that, the warrants pass. Thank you very much. Any other business?
Yes, Ann Ryder asked to speak under other business, Richard.
Thank you, Ann.
As I said, what I'd like to do is just do a little preamble, but basically something to be discussed at the next meeting, because I think it'll take a little time. I had heard that the Algiers Fire District was no longer receiving the services of the town in terms of their billing. However, when I looked through the minutes from December, November, and October, I didn't see any evidence of that. And so that is a question I have. But in relation to that, I also am hoping to have a kind of a discussion and share with the select board the history of how the select board came, or excuse me, how the town of Guilford came to administer the billing and the monies for the Algiers Fire District. And I will just, in truth of advertising, make a pitch for the town to continue that relationship for that small and extremely understaffed organization. As I said, I understand it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted you to have the sort of the complete picture. I had heard this, it concerned me greatly, and I wanted to discuss it when we could get into it.
Okay, thanks, Ann. So we'll put it on the agenda for next time. Thank you very much. Okay, other communications, Peter?
None this week, Richard.
Okay, actions from the previous meeting?
The select board voted to allow the placement of the DV fiber pop box at the town office. You appointed me as the county administrator for the NEU and Treasury reporting website. You gave the select board and commissions the option to have fully remote meetings at least until the end of March. The select board was to follow up on Dan Clay's questions regarding the library, and Veranda and Zahn were to follow up with ARPA applicants and to share social service resources with the individuals and let others know what the status was at the time. Actions taken tonight is you approved the propane RFP, and most of the actions from tonight are follow-up actions, so they're actions to be taken. Aaron Kachuk was going to follow up with the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department and seek their recommendations on a fire warning system. I'm going to follow up with the town's insurance company about whether or not there are any specific insurance requirements for the Historical Society building. A select board member is going to write a letter in response to the Guilford Recreation Club. I didn't recall who was going to write that letter.
I said that you and I would.
Okay. And then Richard and I are going to put together resources to better share information about ARPA and the final rule with the Guilford public. Veranda and Zahn are to follow up with the ARPA applicants and notify them of the current application process as a follow-up from last meeting. Veranda and Zahn are going to also follow up on the idea of forming an ARPA recommendations committee and report back at a forthcoming select board meeting. Zahn is going to clarify his ARPA proposal to the select board and send a copy of that to me. And Brandon and Zahn are going to look into information. That's a repeat of a previous one I had. I apologize. That is all I have. If I missed one, I apologize. There's been a lot of information tonight, and
One that should be on there is that I think that we don't have to enumerate them again, but the enhancement of the goals for next year and the suggestions that we made. I don't think you need to read them again, Peter, but that should be on the action steps.
okay.
Yes, Miranda?
And the website,
Yeah, and the website.
updating. I mean, there's so much to do now, but it's an ongoing issue.
I'm exhausted already. Do I have a motion? Yes, Don. Rusty?
I guess quickly, did we want to make a resolution for the support of the Ukrainian government and the people?
Oh,
Can we do that if it's not on the agenda?
I would recommend not. I would recommend putting it on the agenda for the next select board
Let's put
meeting.
it on the agenda for next time.
Thank you, Rusty,
What
brilliant.
was your motions on? I have no idea.
In light of tomorrow's election, I would like to move that we adjourn now so that we
Okay.
can prepare to vote tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Miranda seconds. Is there any
but I
discussion?
want to say something before we,
Oh, you have, did you second it? Okay.
I did second
Okay,
it,
then I'll
but I
ask if
just
there are any
wanted,
Are there any comments or questions?
yes, I have a comment, which is that I've really enjoyed serving with all of you, and I wanted to say especially to Michael and to Zahn, that you've really given so much, and I hope that you'll get to give some more.
Thank you. I shall take the vote then, if there are no more questions. Michael,
Aye.
Rusty,
Aye.
Zahn,
I
Miranda,
Aye.
Richard, aye. The motion carries, and I am pleased to adjourn the Guilford Select Board meeting of February 28, 2022. Thank you all, thanks the public, and thank you Select Board members.
Good night.
Good night.